how I found SolarEnergy was I was watching, and Prasad may be able to share some of this information, but I was watching a nonprofit organization on the east side of the state, and SolarEnergy had been working with that program. And I had reached out to them to say, hey, are you doing anything in West Michigan, or can you do anything in West Michigan? And they couldn't at the time, but then I saw that soon after that, they were able to work in West Michigan also. So I contacted them again and said, I'm interested. Can you, let's do whatever, whatever I need to provide to you. And we, the rest is history. So next slide. Technology, it's our friend, right?
No, it
Okay,
is.
yeah, so Peter mentioned that I did have a tree removed. So here's some of the costs related and what my return on investment was going to look like. I did have a tree removed. It was a while, I have a hard time doing that, but it was a out of control cherry tree. So, which, normally you wouldn't think they get that big, but it was a big one. So I had that removed. I had to upgrade my electric panel to 200 amp. There was a cost, and I would imagine there still is a application cost with Consumers Energy. I ended up financing through Michigan Saves program, just under $15,000 for the system, which made my payments around $168 for a 10-year loan, which is what the expected return on investment was to be. My panels have a 25-year warranty, with probably the life of them, lasting much longer than that. And then when I filed my taxes for that year, I received a 30% federal tax credit, which was about $4,800. And that incentive, which Prasad will share also, still exists today. So bottom line, after my 30% tax credit, my system was a total cost just under $10,000. Next slide. I think I just have some pictures. Just wanted to share some pictures with you because sometimes people are concerned about the aesthetics of, solar panels. And to tell you the truth, people don't even notice that I have them. I've had people, especially when I first got the system, they'd pull into my driveway. I'd have visitors and I, say, hey, did you see my solar panels? And no, I didn't even notice them. So really, I don't think there's any reason, that anyone should not want to see solar panels on a roof. So go ahead to the next slide, Peter. Yeah, it's very, very hard, to see them unless you're looking for them. Now, I've been out, over the years, I've been out, giving out Halloween candy and things, and I've had parents come up to me and say, I've been meaning to stop and ask you about your solar system. So then we get into the conversation and I share, but I've had that happen many times over the years. So, and that's from an upper view. And that is my inverter on the side of the house. That's what, and I don't know the technical, how it all works actually, but that's what takes the energy from my solar panels and turns it into something that can be sent to the grid. So just wanted to share with you my results, and I'm just going to share with you last year's results. It's been very consistent over 8 years now. But there's what I used last year in my, or not what I used, what I generated. And so remember that back in 2013, I spent over $1,200 to Consumers Energy for the electric that I used. And then last year I spent $426. So overall, my system is generating usually 60 to 70% of my annual needs for electric. And you can see with the bar chart there, just it goes right with the weather, right with winter. They're not going to generate when they're snow covered. I've never gotten up to remove the snow from them. I just let it happen naturally. So of course, if you wanted to clear them off, you could. So yeah, but this is what my annual numbers have looked like consistently for the past 8 years.
Well, thank you, Renee. And I suspect folks may have some questions they want to ask you directly when we get to the end of the slides. So, well, Prasad and Synergy were your contractor. And one of the reasons we like to have a homeowner as a host for these events is that you would not be willing to do this if you didn't like the contractor. And so Prasad, would you give us some information about your company and how it works?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. And happy to see that Renee's system is still working. And she's been a great ambassador for what we wanted to do in communities for a long time. And it's been quite exciting to work with her and see that she is a happy customer. So with that, just to give you our background, I started the company almost more than 10 years, 2010. Started off with my own home. In fact, you will see one of the pictures. To start with, just to leave by example with my own home, before I go and sell it to somebody. So that's the beginning of my journey. Go to the next slide. Yeah. So we are like a total solar developer company where we manage the entire the system, right from the interest of a customer to the complete commissioning the project, right? So just to kind of level set us as a company, and we've been doing rooftop, ground, battery solutions. In fact, we've been very good at this in Puerto Rico. As you all know, there's been a huge power loss. And then also we are actually proud to say that we've been the first company, in fact, install a charging station in Southfield with, I think we might have a picture about that here. Almost 2 or 4 stations we have installed. So we have the experience even in stations for almost more than 7 years now. And proud to say there's some metrics on the environmental side of it. We proud to say that with the total projects that we have so far within Michigan and within the states, now we are even operating business in Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, and now even in India. So this is our environmental contribution. Very proud to what the vision that I had to start off, want to create it, that social responsibility aspect to where we are. I'm proud to say that this is where Synergy's contribution is as of today. In addition to that, for every project that we've been kind of installing in the last few years, for every solar panel that the customer goes with us, we've been planting a tree either in Americas or in India. That's another social impact contribution that we've been doing as part of our the vision, right? So that's where the slide is. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. So in fact, the home with the one in the middle with the Christmas tree and then the deck and all that is my home. That's 2010. That's my first customer is my home. And so just to give you an example, these are some of the installations that we have done in multiple communities across Michigan on the residential side. You can see can be in the front of the house, the back of the house, the ground, different options based on the site assessment that we would do, objective being to have a better payback for every dollar that our customers would invest. So the choice would be south. Like my home, I have a beautiful south facing, and then I added the deck, covered deck in the back that you can see. That's a preferred choice in Michigan. And the second choice is, like Renee mentioned, the east is the next one. So anyway, we do all those assessments just to make sure that that we have a good payback for the investment, and the objective being around less than 10 years is what we're trying to accomplish with respect to the residential systems. So this is some of the examples that we have done in different communities. Next slide, please. Some of the optional add-ons that we have, like the way I mentioned, the charging station is a one, and then the battery is another one, but it's quite expensive right now unless you see really a significant power loss, or you have some equipment that you need within the house that you need to keep those systems running. Then we can even add the batteries, but it's kind of an expensive proposition. But the charging stations, from the day we started like 7-8 years ago to now, it's actually the costs have significantly dropped. We would recommend that as an optional addition. And going back to this tax incentives that Renee mentioned, as of last year, it was 26%. With the new tax incentives now, we have 30% across the board, even for this additional items that we would add. So that is a very good news. In fact, in terms of solar, one is solar plus battery plus charging stations. All of them would get 30%. Another latest improvement in that current tax incentive is, which didn't exist in the previous years, is we can just install battery, and also you would get a 30% tax benefit. But again, we won't recommend that just to go with the battery. But again, that option also exists. Okay, next slide, please. The way our process is, the most important first step is to have the electric bill, which kind of shows the way how Renee has shown what would be the consumption. If you look at your bills, you will see a 12-month consumption, what it looks like, which is the most important first step that we need, is the bill. Once we look at the bill, I mean, we get your home address, and then we look at that through our tools, and then look at the roof and look at the ground like that. And I think one of them mentioned about the shading, even Renee, we had that issue. So we would look at all those things and then figure out what would be the size and what else needs to be done, so that we don't have this shading issues, which is the most important factor to have a better payback. So that's on the system evaluation standpoint. That's the first section. And when it comes to the financing, during our beginning days, it's been quite a challenge to have the projects fully self-funded. So the Michigan Saves is a local program. In fact, it's been a very successful program, which we have really helped a lot of customers to go with the zero down financing. That's one of the exciting programs for Michiganders. So we even provide that financing as a zero down. That's on the financing side. When it comes to installation, like the way I mentioned, entire process, right from getting the bill to do this right system sizing and the design, engineering, working with the local utility, the city permits, and procuring the material and installation. That's actually an important thing. During my beginning days, we've been actually the company being #1 in most of the communities, and including the inspectors and the planners. In my own community in Nova, I have no clue on what to look for. So we went through this whole process of educating the building department and whatnot, and also having the local electricians, where since we are expanding our business, we always want to keep the resources local so that we can keep the cost also contained within that payback cost, right? Rather than having people move from one part of the state to another. So we kind of keep that local installation labor for any kind of support, so that if there's anything that happens, we can always have that support within 24 to 48 hours, is what the objective of local installation is. And the project commissioning steps would be getting a final paperwork with the local utility to say that, yeah, the system is fully installed, and they will give you a parallel operating agreement to say that, yes, the system is grid connected, so we can have this bi-directional energy. So, which is a most important factor in terms of sending the excess energy to the grid, and when we all come home, we use that energy back against what is being sent to the grid. So that's an important element in part of this payback too. So the entire process is managed by us. Based on our experience, the administrative part of project will be around close to 30-45 days. The real installation will be maximum 2 days, but again, weather permitting. But otherwise, a standard 5 kW system would take maximum 2 days unless there are surprises. But that's the timeline. And overall, for the system would be around 60 days is a good directional timeline. That is what we have been installing right now these days. Next slide. I think Renee pretty much covered this. The cost savings, again, with the increased energy costs, which we are all seeing, with the consumers' rates going up, DTE rates going up. But again, we are within still that 10-year payback is what we are looking at. But I think the most important thing, even though I'm in the solar business, I would say, like what Renee said, energy conservation is the first major step, which I strongly recommend before investing this big dollars into a generation aspect of it, right? Changing the light bulbs, simple tasks like that, insulating the home, getting the high energy efficient appliances. In fact, the latest IRA, which is the act in terms of the energy benefits, there are a lot of incentives associated with that. I would recommend that to be the step to look into, which are less expensive than the solar, right? So I would recommend that as a first step to look at it. But objective being, one is the savings, and then of course the carbon footprint, and we all want to be in the clean energy space. That's another benefit. And the batteries, like the way I mentioned, it's expensive, but if you have any systems at home, sometimes we have some homeowners with seniors, and they have some kind of medical equipment that they need to run or something like that. So we would recommend batteries there as a critical thing. And of course, like the way I mentioned, in Puerto Rico, we've been doing batteries for every project because of the nature of the grid there. And I think I kind of repeated here, the whole permit process will be managed by us, and then the installation is like within 2 days. And again, the objective, which is when Peter reached out to us from where we are 10 years ago to now, mostly we are now doing projects on a commercial scale, which are like 10,000 panels, on a 5 acres, 10 acres, bigger clients, Target stores, pharmaceutical industry in Puerto Rico. And so we've been doing all large scale. So any strategic initiatives like this is of an interest for us because we buy things in bulk. And any strategic initiatives like this is of an interest, and that's why we are here. In few communities which we have been very selective where we want to be involved in. As I mentioned, the focus has been all big commercial projects. Like, just to give an example, we smack in the middle of 3-4 Target stores in Michigan right now we're working on. So things like that. So with all that, what happens with this program is the bulk discounts, buying one container versus 5 containers are kind of managing this program initiative with the team and combining this with our commercial project and giving the discounts is our primary objective. So we want to be really less than a 10-year payback, say around $3. And with all the discounts, I'm hoping we would be around $2.50 is what I'm actually asking the team to see how we can reach those objectives. But on a commercial scale, these days, we are doing projects even for like $1.40 also now these days. But again, the cost is a cost. So we're trying to be at least be aggressive and see how we can bring our experience, to a program like this. So that's where we are on the bulk aspect of it. Do I have any more slides? Next
No,
one.
that's
Okay.
that's the end.
I don't know where I am here. Yeah,
Okay, let me move on here quickly because I do want us to get to Q&A.
sure. Yeah.
But just to let you folks know, Prasad has talked about finance and Renee has talked about finance, and this is really a good time to be thinking about solar panels if you're serious, because the federal government has their 30% tax credit off your income tax. Synergy has the potential to get up to 15% if we get 10 installations out of this group buy experience. And as they're indicating, there are other creative financing options available out there. So there really is tools for you to work with if you do want to move forward. Just as a rule of thumb, when you take a look at all the projects going on around Michigan, panels are being installed anywhere from 5 to 7 kW, somewhere in the neighborhood of $3,000 per kilowatt hour. I hear Prasad saying they believe they can beat a number like that. Payback generally across the board is falling in that 10 to 13-year range. And the beauty of the panels is they're going to have a 25-year warranty, but that they don't die on their 25th birthday. They keep right on going. And most panels are good for probably 40 years. So if you have paid off your system within 10 years, you have a lot of years to be thinking about electricity availability. When we talked about prorated discounts, this is what we're talking about coming out of this event. If there are 3 contracts, and we're going to hold it open till June 1st, we know it takes time for you to make a decision, for Prasad to work out a quote, for decisions to be made. In most cases, there's probably going to be a site visit to make sure that your electric panel is adequate, that your trees aren't a problem, that your roof is, how close is that to being replaced, all those fine tuning things to get a final quote. So the offer is being held open to June 1st, but if 3 contracts emerge, that will be 5%. If there are 7 contracts, 10%, and 10 or more contracts, that would be a 15% off for each one of those individual contracts. We want to make this as easy for you folks as possible if you want to move forward. Our just one request is, if you think you want to move forward, or if you need more information, let us know at SolarUP. You see the email address there, or let us know and say, hey, I want to get a quote. And send us that message along with a copy of your electric bill. If you simply need some information, we don't want you to have to chase everybody for that. Let us know what you need. We will chase it down for you. We want to make this as simple as possible for you to be able to move forward. Step 2 is you may want to recruit others to join you, or you may want to refer on to them the information you've gained here. Because if they join the event and do schedule a project, that counts towards the discount. So yeah, we will put out information periodically that says 3, 5, 7, however many people have moved ahead to committing to a contract. If it looks like it's close to a break point, you may want to say to your friends, hey, it would be worth your while to see if somebody else could join us. So there's some built-in incentive, we think, in the incentive program. And we recommend that you do your research and then decide. It is fair to say, hey, I want bids from other contractors for a significant amount of investment. You may feel more comfortable knowing what other bids are like. Are they all kind of the same? How does that look? That would be a piece of information I'd want if I was spending this kind of money. If you need to speak with other folks about their experience, like we did with Renee tonight, then we have some folks we could put you in touch with. And at that, we kind of raced through a lot of information here, but we are interested in hearing your questions. Carl, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, thank you for the great presentation. I'm super excited and definitely going to email about a quote. I had a question, and I think you hit it on the head that no house is typical. So we're interested in solar for a multifamily apartment building in Holland. We have 4 units. So I was curious about your experience with multifamily and some of the unique challenges of that. And I know in the IRA bill, there's also a tax incentive if the building serves an affordable housing program, which we do. And I didn't know if you as a developer help clients with that, or if you have recommendations about where to go for details about that tax incentive.
Wow, I'm actually Carl, right? Sorry, I can see.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm not wearing my glasses. I don't know where they are today. Yeah. So I'm actually glad you asked the question. There's, in fact, I'm hoping you have a separate LLC, right, for your own asset that you're owning here. So one is, of course, you get your 30%. Then you have your 85% of the total project cost would also be accelerated depreciation makers, which is another one, second one. And a third one is if you are in the low income, you get around a 10% to 20%. So we have to look at that census tracts to see whether your your asset multi-unit falls into that. So bottom line, if we do it right with the makers, the depreciation plus the ITC, you want to get almost close to 65% of the money. Because this is what we do. We work with a commercial, somebody like you owning 100 units and an office building like that. So definitely there's a lot of incentives. It will be a no-brainer for somebody like you. In fact, in some communities, we are receiving almost 75% in first year itself, the money. Depends on you're in a brownfield, whether you're kind of doing those things. Of course, you're not in a brownfield here, I hope, but that's things like that, right? So yes, we have quite an experience. In fact, we'll be glad to help you there. And we have all the financial models in place.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Carl Bloss, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, first of all, interesting, there's another Carl with a K. So I actually had a similar question. I put some pictures here in the chat. So I live in a townhouse development in Muskegon, and we have 14 units. And I'm just curious how that would work. Like, for us, like, I don't own the roof. I don't own that. It belongs to the HOA. But then once you put solar on it, presumably they become, they become the owner of that. But then how is the power divided up? That sort of thing. And so for reference, I did have solar on my last house. I had a 10 kW system when I lived in Missouri. And at that time, Kansas City Power and Light was giving 15% discount. Oh, and so I got $1.50 a watt back. So that was a really good payback. So I'm sold on the concept. I don't have combustion cars anymore. I have EVs. So I'm like all in on this stuff, but I'm just wondering about the details of how it would work for a unit like ours.
In fact, yeah,
maybe the scope of today, but that's something that be interested in. Yeah.
No, actually, I'm glad. I'm quite excited. In fact, this question's amazing. Carl, we have actually done in Ann Arbor, a community of 44 or 45 homes. I wish I had a picture of that. Something similar, it's a shared community living, 44 families living with a shared car garages. I mean, I think something similar you might have here where you can park.
Yeah,
house.
our garages are independent, so.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah.
So we have to work with your homeowners association together, and we can kind of install like the way how we have done in the past, right? It's a shared space, so we need to get approval from your association. Each system will be on its own roof and tied to the meter. I'm hoping you all have your own meters, right? So we would tie it to the meter is what we would do as a strategy. And if there's any common lighting, which is what we have done, we had the other project we did in Ann Arbor 7 years ago. It's again a community living like yours. They have this car garage, everybody parks there. So, and they have a clubhouse. So we even put the solar on the building for all the common lighting, the clubhouse, the outside parking lights and everything. So we put I think a 20 kW system outside, and each homeowner got 3 to 5 kW system based on the roof size. So that's what would be the approach here.
Okay.
Yeah, can be done. But again, it's a process of having all of you going through that census process saying, yes, it's because you want to share the roof with somebody else.
Right. And it always becomes an issue, like what happens when the roof needs to be replaced and.
Right, exactly. Those are all the, right.
Also the units were built at different times, so the age
Understand.
of the roofs are, so all these things would have to be worked out. Like what I'm hearing is these are not insurmountable issues.
No, it's not. I mean, we have done it. I mean, again, it all depends on how you all come to conclusion about those cost factors, right?
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's the main driver. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to be the board president, so I think.
Oh, there you go. So you
pretty good cohesive.
yeah, you just have to go through the administrative process. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I see 3 other hands raised, and before I call on you, Dave Beatty, I think you were first. If you folks want to ask a question, the easiest way to know if we're ready for, or you want to ask a question, we go to that toolbar on the bottom of the screen where it says reactions. Click on the little up arrow there, and at the bottom of that little grid, you'll see the button you can click on for raise hand. Dave Beatty, would you go ahead?
Yeah, I'm going to defer to Robert because I don't know if Robert's been here before, but I've been here a few times. So I thought I can go after Robert.
Okay.
My question, if Robert would like to go ahead of me.
I guess I'm the Robert you're talking about.
Yeah, you're the
Yes.
Robert. You're the Robert Kennedy.
Okay. Yeah, my question is, what are there any areas of the state that you don't presently service? I live in the northern part of the Lower Peninsula over on the Sunrise side. Just wanted to see if you would cover an area like that.
Who's the utility company? Are you serviced by who? Is it consumers or?
Consumers Energy.
Okay, I think we can take a look at it. If we can bundle within this initiative itself, right? The objective is we're kind of looking for that big project, right? With 100 homes. I mean, that's what our interest is. So if you fall within a radius, definitely we would take it up because we just don't want to sell and walk away, right? I mean, the objective is to also, if there are any future surprises that come up, I mean, usually we, like the way Renee says, you don't have to do any maintenance, but we just want to make sure that we're not just selling. We want to equally make sure that we have a support, that's the main purpose there. Just don't want to jump into, some location that where we can't have a proper support system. That's all. But we can look at that. If you can share Bill with SolarUP team, and we can come back to you on that.
Thank you.
David, given your reputation for patience, Carl Hoch has another question.
I've already asked one too, so I think David's here. But just to keep things moving, I guess I'll ask it. Hopefully, it's an applicable question for a lot of people. But we are in the city of Holland, so work with Holland BPW. But I know all utilities have certain rules about the
That's
maximum,
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
maximum size allowable, and so
That's
we're
right.
also considering electrifying our heat source. And I
Ah.
know that they've looked at like a past year's worth of electric usage to determine like capacity size for some facilities. I was curious if you have recommendations for getting that sort of thing done so that that could be considered in the size that you would build out, or the steps to working with the utility in terms of right sizing a facility for energy demand.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you're asking all the smart and important questions here, right? Going electric is the way the future is, the way things are, right? Especially even in the multi-unit or even the homes these days. Once you know what that is, we would work with your architect and then say, this is what the consumption is, and this is what the future is. Like, let's say tomorrow you might buy an electric vehicle, right? Let's say something, right? So we want to justify in our paperwork that it's not just the last 12-month consumption. Here is the upgrades that we are doing, and hence we need 20% more or 50% more. And that's why we need not a 10 kW or a 20 kW. Now we need a 50 kW system. So that process is what we kind of manage with the interconnection paper trail, that we work with you as a customer, plus your architect, or mainly your architect, but we'll have our own engineers to kind of work with you also, but that's the process. So anyone for that matter. So if today the lifestyle is this, and if somebody's buying an electric vehicle, any one of you, then we just have to kind of look at it and justify that increase in the size. But again, increase in the size, sometimes we might be lucky enough to get that size. Again, you're constrained with the roof and the ground and the trees and the shade, and so there's a lot of permutations and combinations we have to look at it. But to answer the question, yes, but we have to go through the process until we reach a dead end.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I see two hands up, Dave Beatty.
Just to answer the question, so far, Carl, we never came across in our last 10 years for any of those justifications, issues. The reason is it's been consumers and DTE, any one of these co-ops we have done in some co-ops too. No one has really raised the bar to say, oh, we won't approve you because of the MPSC rules or something. We just cannot do it, because it's been a smooth sail. So that's a good thing, unless you have a real estate constraints. Yeah.
Hey, Dave Beatty, and then followed by James.
Okay, first of all, I was gonna see if when this meeting is over, if Carl could give me a ride in his car that's behind his head. So I know you're really trying to be very energy efficient. So I hope that is the solar car. One of the issues. If you want to see more notes on, or the same kind of notes on Renee's story, which I thought was really very good, and thank you for the PowerPoint on that. That's also on the solarupnet.org website. So when you go onto that, you can click right below. You'll see a button that will take you right to the page where if you've been on that site before, you probably signed up with Eventbrite, but to be here. But I have Renee's story on there. So and so I could use an extra picture there, Renee, the one of your graph, which I don't have independent, but I'd love to put up there. That your graph is very good. I just didn't. I'm the one that sort of put that up on the site. So the one question is, knowing Renee, how long ago she got that would probably go to Prasad. So thank you very much for your presentation. But the question I had, given the fact I keep hearing how the costs have come down so much in the past several years, what would be probably the total cost for an A system today? Would that be 20-30% less or not?
Right. I mean, when I started a 5 kW system, I almost invested $7,000 a watt, almost $35,000, right? I don't remember. I think Renee was like almost 2 or 3 years later, it dropped, and then it's dropped and dropped and dropped. The material cost is coming down, but the sad story is cost of doing business is going up, right? The labor cost, and, other factors. But when you look at the sum total cost of the system, it has significantly dropped by 20 to 30%, right? I mean, that's a good news here.
Yeah.
But overall, what we are seeing being in this business and doing residential, commercial, and in different markets and different regions, Michigan tends to be around 9 to 10 years for residential, unless we have seen some other solar installers giving some preposterous numbers and taking them to a way higher numbers from a payback years wise. But that's what it is. A multi-home like Carl's project, if everything looks good, he might have a payback of 5 years or even 4 years. I would be happy to see it less than 5. We see those 3 years in Puerto Rico right now. I mean, entire Puerto Rico is a low income and a lot of money there, right? So things like that. So the commercial without the low income would be 7 years. Residential is around 9, 10 years. And with all these incentives with the low income census tracts, we're looking at around 6, 7 years, or even less than 5 years. So it all depends on what that is. And a bigger project like on a 5-acre land would be 3 years. And in India, our payback is 2.5 years.
The next question, so thank you very much for that. That's a great answer. Thank you. The next question I had, I noticed, and what the one installation showed at the garage, you showed a hookup, a charging station for the car. So do you set that up separately so that you're not, that becomes independent of the grid or independent of BPW or whomever else we have and that we're hooked up with in the so that we get our payback and our credits?
Right. I mean, the two things here, right? Based on what we have seen, again, it's utility driven. If we want the rebates, like consumers and DTs giving some X dollars for the installation, so we would like to keep the installation separate so that you would get that money. That's one. If that option doesn't exist, then the existing inverter, which you have seen the blue box in Renee's presentation, actually comes with an additional X dollars, which is not a significant amount, charging right there within that box itself. You don't have to incur additional cost and wiring and whatnot, other things. So that's approach. So we just have to look at it through that site assessment and the local utility to say which one is the right way to do. And then at that point, we just have to make a decision. Bottom line being, want to get the money back in less than 10 years, right?
But you could have your charging station, which is just
Separate.
for the car, separate.
Right. That's
Okay.
it, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So that kind of answers the question that I had. Well, I have many more, but we can move on to let James have a question.
Thank you, Peter, for this, and thank you to the presenters. This has been
Yeah.
very well presented tonight. I do have a solar display of 19 panels at the present time. Find myself in a position that I'm ready to expand, but the limit of the control that consumers' power has in the permitting the size of the display would cost me a loss in that agreement. Is there anything being done to relieve the consumer, the builder, the system from the control of consumers' energy at this time?
Actually, I'm hoping your system is right-sized, to start with. Again, keeping that aside, if you Google consumers' energy just got approved with respect to their net metering, you should Google that. They increased their capacity by 2%. I mean, it's a significant, 2% is a big number and it seems to be small as a 2. but that gives us an opportunity to sell and buy through this new net metering. So if you install the system somewhere in between where the rules are grandfathered, and you still have a system that is being installed and is generating excess energy, you might be kind of buying the energy from consumers at a way higher price than what you're feeding them back, which is usually like 6-7 cents. So you would get that at 14-15 cents. But again, when you're feeding into the grid, because you're not in that net metering, you might be getting a less number. But now we have the new ruling now, so buy sell would be the same numbers. So we just have to look at your situation to see what is the right thing to do. But did you install the system based on your last 12 months and then somebody did that analysis to have that system installed that way?
This was 1998, and we had a phase out period then
Wow.
within that agreement. And
Okay, interesting.
I would be interested in talking to you about the expansion.
Sure. Definitely, we can look into that. Yeah, okay.
Steve DeYoung has his hand raised.
Yes, Prasad, it's maybe not a question, or you've probably answered it, but I know in the Holland BPW consumers area, the rebates, of course, every year change, and they have, Renee had listed going from 100 amp to 200 amp in her system, and BPW now I know throws a lot of money in rebates towards that. So the question kind of was, you check into all of that, or you stay on top of all that stuff, so you'd handle it all for the homeowner.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
In fact, another thing which I mentioned before, we come in as a solar installer, the energy conservation as part of the Inflation Reduction Act has a lot of money to add for heat pumps and induction electric heat, cooking stoves in home, changing, energy efficiency things. There's so much money there right now, right? You should explore those options, with respect to that. I mean, there's so many incentives. Even I'm considering those. I mean, I lived in this house for the last 20 plus years. I'm actually thinking about upgrading all of them into this new energy efficiency systems. I would actually make a note of Inflation Reduction Act energy efficiency incentives, and then you guys should Google and see there's so much money in there.
I would
And you
add
should
to
talk
that.
to your local heating cooling guys, maybe your handyman, local folks to explore those options. And even in Grand Rapids, we have a Green Home Institute. Brett Little is also there. He's a great ambassador, been promoting this for a long time. He would be another good institute to reach out for those energy efficiency. But as an energy generation company, we always recommend energy conservation and energy efficiency instruments or appliances be at home, so that we can kind of come in and then make your bill as low as we can.
And if people want to do more about those Inflation Reduction Act discounts, there is an organization called Rewire America that has created an online calculator where you can plug in your individual information, and they will tell you exactly what you're eligible for and how much it is.
I think that, Peter, you should put it on your website. I mean, I think even I have it on my desk. I'm just looking at it.
So I see Renee is online. Carl beat you to it, Renee.
I just wanted to let everyone know that I did post the link to Rewire America in the chat, if you're the kind of person that wants to dig into that yourself.
Okay,
Thank you,
thank you,
Renee.
Renee. Carl.
Yeah, I just wanted to do a quick follow-up. So full disclosure, I work for Consumers Energy, but not in the solar interconnection stuff, so I can't talk much about that. But more to the question of electric vehicles. So EVs and EV charging is typically separate. I mean, it's just tied into your
Mhm.
your grid tied system.
Right.
We do have programs. I put a link in the chat. We have a rebate program called Power My Drive, and it will help you finance the home charging. At the present time, we're giving a $500 rebate towards a home charging unit, which are typically between $600 and $750. Now, you still need to put the home wiring in place, which is typically a 240 volt, 50 amp circuit. And moving forward, we're going to be rebating that 50 amp circuit installation because so many vehicles are now coming with chargers. And so it's not as much of a value for people, but it's definitely a good fit. Solar and EVs, I always say EVs are a gateway drug for solar. Because once you realize how much you're using, then suddenly you say, I'm an engineer. I used to have my friends telling me, oh, your EVs are running on coal. And I took care of that by putting solar on the roof of my house. One thing, what Prasad was saying, you want to look at what your usage is, because once you add an EV, and you have to look at how much you're driving, and then how much that's going to add to your potential load. And I mean, the only other thing to consider is that right now, the way it works is the rates are cheaper if you're still grid tied. Obviously, the rates are cheaper for charging overnight. So you have to balance all those things. What makes the most sense.
Actually, I'm glad, Carl, you brought it up. That's another thing as a consumers, you should be all getting from your respective utility company something in the mail to say, even I got it at my home, the time of use and different rate cards. Looking at your lifestyle, I mean, that's something you should look at it to see which one fits, because that also helps in your bottom line of your payback. So that's a very important step. As a Michiganders, we all have to look at our latest bill, rate cards, and then, kind of pay attention to those. If you don't smartly manage your rate card, means where you are, like whether you do your dishes in the 7 p.m., you want to pay, paying 16 cents or 18 cents. And so you do your dishes at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m., you'll only spend like, I think 8 cents or 10 cents, something like that, right? So you just have to be smart about that also.
Yep, no, that's a great point. And actually, we have a service to take your energy usage from the last 12 months and plug it into a spreadsheet and basically tell you which rate would have been the most beneficial for you.
Right.
So all these things work together, but it also figures into, what Prasad, what you're going to be calculating for people for their usage and their usage pattern.
Prasad, I know there's at least one person on the call who's a landlord, owns a house or several houses, individual residential structures. How does
like independent homes.
Yeah, how do discounts play out in that scenario?
I think it's something similar like a Carl's situation, right? I mean, sometimes you have duplexes, sometimes you have, multi-units as a one unit. If you have a separate LLC for those, or you have a one LLC that own all these assets, we can kind of look at it to see what is the right way to do it. So we can treat them as a non-residential because it belongs like as a commercial, so they get the depreciation benefit also. So we just have to look at that. Sometimes you would have those real estate investors owning 10 individual homes, and then we just have to treat them as a non-residential when it comes to tax benefits. The only major differentiating factor, since we do that day in, day out commercial, is what we do 80-90% of our business, is the depreciation plays a major role, in addition to the 30% what a residential customer would get. But we can look at that as a one portfolio. In fact, we would love to help anyone who owns assets like that.
Okay. Do you have an estimate, just at least a ballpark estimate of how long it takes? How long should a homeowner expect? Let's say tomorrow morning they say, hey, I want a quote. How much time elapses before everything is done and the project is commissioned.
That's why I mentioned it. Once we say go from any one of you, it takes like a administrative task on our side would be like a 3 to 5 days to get the bill, do the analysis in-house, and come to the site, have kind of ask these lifestyle questions, and then go through the process, right? So that itself will take a week or 2 weeks, and then signing the contract, and then going to the utility. These days, the paperwork is moving very smoothly with every utility company. Within 2 to 3 weeks, we would have interconnection paperwork approval from them, and then go to the city another 2 weeks. So bottom line, if you look at all this, I would say 60 days is a good number, unless we have some, Mother Nature issues like what happened in Renee's case, right? But otherwise, the true installation is only 2 days.
Okay.
For a 5 kW to 7 kW system.
You see Jonathan Brownson has his hand raised.
Thank you, Peter. I'm one of the landlords. Peter was mentioning that
Okay.
own several different individual homes,
Sure.
and have one in particular with a south-facing roof that I'd like to get an estimate on. Denise is also on the video chat here, and I partner with her on another property. So yeah, I would want to know,
Right.
how that would work. I do have a separate LLC for the
Perfect. Yep.
for the south-facing roof. Denise, I don't know if you want to add any questions from your standpoint, but
Are you, Jonathan, are you an active or a passive investor?
I don't know what you mean by that.
There are like IRS guidelines, around that. But anyway, we can talk offline. But yeah. Go ahead, Dennis. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a real estate agent, so
Okay.
I'm declaring expenses on all my rentals. Yeah.
Okay. And you do your property management.
Yes, although I have a property manager that I have do a couple of the homes that I have. So
Okay. I mean, we can talk offline. Yeah. Go ahead, Dennis.
okay.
Okay, Carl, sounds like conversation sparked another question.
Sure did. But it's completely off topic. So if there's more questions related to the multifamily, I can defer to those. But I'll shoot my question out, and then if somebody else wants to chime in, I'm curious about the sourcing of your materials. We know we hear about unethical practices, or like where the minerals are coming from, where the panels are, and obviously there's financial considerations because sometimes the cheapest are also not coming from the most ethical places. So I was wondering if you can speak to that at all.
Right. And actually, I'm glad you asked the question. As a baseline, we've been using Bloomberg listed tier 1 panels, which is, it's not going through this entire value chain of ethical business practices, something, but as a financial and as a business that is being financially strong and being in business and all that. So we always use this Bloomberg listed companies. Solar panels is our major primary criteria, right? Which has been what we've been using. When it comes to the ethical practices and all that, we don't have much visibility, but just because of this being a global brands, they do business everywhere. So I'm hoping they fall into those segments of categorization, right? The industry has become very mature with the way how things are. Even the solar panel manufacturers, they themselves are trying to be what you're asking, Carl, in terms of sustainability, because they themselves, to run their own factory, they are using dirty energy, right? We can't feed the whole factory with the solar panels. You don't have that much roof on the warehouse, right? So they're trying to be as green as we can and sustainable. So that's where we are.
Yeah.
But again, that's one thing. with this latest IRA, there are so many incentives for made in USR manufacturing. So you have a lot of international companies are setting up manufacturing in US right now as we speak, but those panels might come out maybe end of the year or next year or something, which is another major driver of this Inflation Reduction Act.
David, another question?
Yes, Prasad, I noticed in one of your setups, you had your panels on the ground. We have rejected space because we had two, once about 5 or 6 years ago, and just recently, well, back in, I think the very first SolarUP meeting we had, that of those people that applied, we were one of the set of 10 or so homes that got rejected. But we have a nice sunny side yard, and so I guess the question is, since you do have you talked about different installations, do you do those set those up often when you have a situation where you have a lot of trees over a house? I mean, it's great.
Yeah.
Our air conditioning bills are very low in the summer, so it's a positive.
Right. No, I mean, like I said, again, we look at the entire real estate, right? The roof and the ground to kind of optimize the consumption. That is what our objective here is. But I'm not sure why it's been rejected. If it's rejected, there's a lot of other ways to do it. I mean, one is the ground which you have seen. We can even build a pergola style, like the way which you see my home. We can build those with a wooden post and have solar panels on the top and have a community type location right below that too. So there's a lot of creative ways that can be done.
Yeah, because that's one of the issues, as we've talked about, is kind of having communities that can actually share, panels or share solar among our neighbors.
Okay. Yeah, that's a policy thing. So we got to work with the local utility, regarding that. The community solar as a mandate. I think somebody who is from Missouri here, right? I mean, they have you can just put up a solar and you can share the panels, right? I mean, unless that strategy is initiated by the utility company itself, right? Then you can kind of say, out of the 100 panels, 10 are mine and 10 are yours, and then we all can go through the subscription process. But that's a joint strategy initiative of your local utility co-op and you all, right? Because it's a public service thing, which is something we got to work with the utility,
Yeah.
Greg, you have your hand raised?
Yes, I was wondering, Prasad, about, so our roof is about 20 years old, and so we're at about that time where we need to replace the roof. I've seen things about like solar shingles. Are there options where if you're replacing the roof, there are architectural or engineering options where the replaced roof plus the cost of solar, instead of A plus B, you don't end up with the total, you can have some savings while you're installing a roof, or is that not the case?
No, definitely it's the case. In fact, we have done, this Target stores that we are doing right now, I mean, they're all brand new roofs, and then we are putting the solar back on them, right? There's definitely the cost factors, because we can, again, it's a labor component. Material cost is a material, but instead of having crew out and onboarding, offboarding, definitely there is a savings of 10 to 20% if we put it all together, right? As an overall approach that can be looked into. Definitely there's savings. I mean,
go ahead.
No, I'm saying we can't just say how much that would be. Again, it all depends on what we are doing. If you have 100,000 square foot, the savings will be higher. If you have a smaller footprint, then it will be less, right? Things like that, right?
Okay, I put my email in on the website, so hope to follow up with you and just get an assessment, and we can see what options there are.
Okay, great.
Prasad, do I understand correctly that you will take care of all the permitting? Which
Yeah.
means the homeowner would not have to go to the utility, for instance, and ask for an interconnection permit. You would take care of that. Are those costs rolled into the quote?
Yeah, there's one, I think it's there in Renee's slide. The only cost that is outside ours is that the interconnection fees. I think it came down now. Before it used to be 100. Now I think it is $50 right now, I think. So that's the only cost that the homeowners needs to send the check out, but it's a joint collaborative approach, right? Everything is digital right now. So you create a user ID, you go into the system, you do the paperwork, we initiate some, the homeowner has to do it, and the payment has to happen. I think in some instances you can use a credit card to pay, and I think in most of the cases we have seen checks are being mailed. So I'm not sure unless Carl, I don't know what's happening right now in consumers, but that's what is being.
Okay.
But again, I don't want to complicate this conversation, but the entire process is pretty smooth. I mean, it takes like 2 to 3 weeks. I don't want to create this, oh my God, this is such a administrative thing. I got to have a user ID, password, and no, it's not that, right? It's very smooth. It's always good to have that user ID password, because like the way we talk now, it's always good to go back and look at your lifestyle and say which rate card you want to be. And it's all paperless is the future, right? So you would have that as the same user ID password for everything.
Part of the reason I raised the question was that I installed solar on my roof about 2.5 years ago. And the installer was totally blindsided by a building inspector who insisted on an engineering study for my roof. We tried to say to the man, look, the system weighs less than I do. It's not going to collapse the roof. He still insisted he had to have it. I'm wondering if you've ever been surprised or blindsided.
I am really glad you asked the question, right? This entire permit process, entire jurisdiction, all the way from Michigan UP to down here, everybody's different. Somebody wants a stamp drawing, somebody says, I don't care, just, it's just like all over. Nobody knows what it is, right? It's just crazy. And even it's a surprise to us. I mean, now we know, being in so many communities, which location we have to have a stamp drawing and which location we don't have to, right? I mean, so we have that right now, but it varies.
Okay. Renee, you have your hand raised, and I see Don after that.
But again, going back to another part of this question is, like the way Peter mentioned, the weight, the dead load is very insignificant for either it's a residential or a commercial building. We are talking less than 10 pounds a square foot. So it's a very insignificant load. But again, it's a jurisdiction driven, what they want. Yeah.
Renee.
Yeah, I just wanted to support what Prasad said. The only things that I had to handle myself was removal of the tree, upgrading my electrical panel, and then they even gave me the paperwork, the consumer's paperwork that I had to send in with a check, and all I had to do was sign it. So it very, very easy process. And then the permits that they pulled, we waited 3 weeks before we got them, which we thought was kind of unusual. So we were kind of expecting them to come back with some questions, and because it was taking a little bit longer than normal, and they were backed up and never came back with any questions at all.
I think most of the communities are kind of, kind of getting used to it, like any other electrical addition in the home, right? So it's getting to that point right now. The only thing is, some communities do ask for this structural stamp on the roof as part of their planning. Yeah.
I'm seeing Don Triesenberg and then Trenton.
Yeah, I live in a 3-story multifamily condo unit, and it's a self-managed unit. And one of their biggest concerns is that, and the biggest expenses they worry about is at some point having to redo the roof. And that comes up often in trying to talk to them about installing solar. There seems to be this inordinate fear that somehow putting solar panels will create leaks in the roof and create all those kinds of problems. And I would expect that may be a concern even of some single family homeowners. I also expect that that's not a realistic concern, but I wonder if you could say something that, or give some guidance, easing a homeowner to a large multifamily unit's concern about what solar panels does it create leaks in the roof? Well, no, but how do you convince people of that?
Right. The mounting systems, when we started off 10 years ago to now, they have significantly improved from any kind of weather related matters. There's actually, in fact, there's a huge improvement by design, considering my home to even Renee's home with what today's flash mount systems that are out there. The design is, in fact, more robust right now when it comes to the way how the technology has improved from a solar panel energy generation. The same happen in the mounting systems, when they're penetrated, because 70-80% of the homes roofs are, the solar panels goes on the roof. So the industry also has significantly matured over the process. To this day, we never had any issue with any homes to say that my home in my own business is my first, client or a customer. I have no roof issues. So it's the same with most of our installs. That's on the residential side. But when it comes to the commercial buildings, we don't even penetrate any of the roofs. It's a ballast system. I don't think we have pictures in the presentation. There's no penetration. They just lay flat on we have done some projects even in Grand Rapids. There's no penetration, it's just a block that sits on the roof, and that's even more safe. So that's another design when it comes to the flat roof. Yeah.
Is there, just a quick follow-up, is there a warranty guarantee? Is there an insurance policy you can buy against that just to be double safe?
I don't think there's any, actually, the two things here. I strongly recommend this. Once you have this solar system being installed, now it becomes part of your asset for the home. You have to call your insurance company and say, I have this installed and the value of the system is whatever that is, 10,000, 15, whatever that the system costs. That's the first important step, right? So that you're totally covering with your policy. And the cost of the policy, again, every insurance company is different. It may be anywhere from $25 to $50 or $15. There's no number here. I've seen it all, right? So that's another cost to be considered as part of this installation. That's the first piece. There is no insurance per se for any kind of damage that is caused by this installation, other than any kind of hurricanes or any kind of mother nature issues that come up that leads to any damage, like any other roof damage. You are covered with the policy. But there's nothing per se for what we do as a policy that we can add. Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. Trenton.
Another thing, Don, when you asked the question, in fact, we went through that in some residential projects. Whenever I think someone mentioned my roof is now 20 years, I'm going to replace. The important thing for us and the roofer, whoever we work with, is the roof warranty, right? So if you're putting a new roof, it's a very important step here. that we need to have things in writing from the roofer plus us working together to ensure that wherever we are penetrating, they know where we are penetrating, and we have things in writing so that no one is fighting among as a customer and as a contractor. So we need to be all on one page to say, here's my roof, and here's my layout, and here are the penetrations, and we have done it all. So it's a smooth process because every roofing company is coming across the nation. So there should not be a surprise for the manufacturer or the roof installer to say that, oh, I'm installing solar, so will my warranty be void just because I'm installing? It's not the case.
Right.
Okay. Brenton Meehan? Okay. Brenton, I don't know if you're muted. We're not hearing you.
Hi, Prasad. I simply wanted to ask for your contact information so that I could follow up after this meeting is over.
Yeah, I think you might have missed the slide. So there's a
Oh, I did see it, but I didn't record it. Could somebody drop it into the chat window, for example? It's not in the meeting notice, and I didn't capture that as it was going by on the slides.
So Peter, you want to have your email as a contact to start with, or how you want to?
Yeah, if you'd send us a note at SolarUP, solarupnet.org, we will filter all the questions back to Prasad.
Peter,
Thank you.
Clyde Taylor also had a question in the chat. He's asking, do you deal only with silicone-based PV?
Yes, the answer is today, as we speak, that's the most cost-effective solution. If you recollect Renee's slide, she's talking about those panels taking up, I think, somewhere 360 square foot space for a 5 kW system. Now the same system, we might do it for 240, but if we are going with a thin film, we might go back to 400 square foot because if you look at the specs, we're talking about 400 watt panel, but the thin film is maybe 180 or 200. So you need more roof space. So it's not a viable option. That's number one. Number two, you might have also seen there's a lot of news around Tesla, which tried, and a lot of other companies, roofing companies are also trying, is instead of going the solar traditional shingles, they have this solar based shingles as an option. But again, it's going to cost twice the money, and the payback, instead of being the way how I'm saying 10 years, it might go to like 20 years, So these are all the things which I don't recommend unless you are so concerned about the way your home looks, or you just don't like the way it looks with the panels. Then there are options, and money is not an issue, right? I mean, we can do it all. I mean, if you're prepared for that type of cost, but there are options.
Everyone, it's at the 8:30 hour here. I think we should probably wrap it up at this point. It really felt like a good town hall meeting there with the questions and answers. And again, if you would like to follow through, the one thing we ask you to do is just let us know at solarupnet.org. Let us know you'd like to follow through, and we will filter those questions on in those requests for quotes onto Prasad. If you simply have a question, let us know what that is, and we'll do our best to get an answer for you. But we want to make it as easy for you to just do one-stop shopping, so to speak, and not have to do your own research and run all over the place trying to get answers. So with that said, I want to really thank Renee for spending time with us tonight and being a host, Prasad for representing your company, and of course to all of you who are interested. We're eager at SolarUP to get as much residential solar installed as possible. That's why we facilitate this kind of a question or a kind of an event. So with that said, thank you all for being here tonight.
And Peter, let me just quickly add in response to a question in the chat that we will send out. We have been recording this meeting and we will make that recording available to all of the people who participated.
Yes. Everyone, good night. Thank you for your time.
Right. Thank you. Take care. Yeah.